Okay.
Should pastors get a salary?
Uh-huh.
What are your initial thoughts? You got a person who went and spent $130,000 on education, then we'll turn around and say, well, we're going to give you a little bit of money.
Pastoring is a 24/7 job.
It's interesting that people have these demands of a leader, of how a leader should function, what a leader should do, and then turn around and muzzle the leader. Sacrificed you, our family, to serve the church, and the church wasn't even rewarding that. The question is a tough question because the culture has changed the way to view that question. The way we think about church and church culture and the way we practice church today is not what we see generally in scripture. All right, thank you so much for tuning in to the Church Dropout podcast. My name is Alan. I'm joined by
Lisa.
Church Dropout is a podcast. We talk about issues, topics, and teachings related to faith, life, and culture in ways that are sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always insightful. If you have not already, please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast at. We'd appreciate it. Drop a comment below. Keep the conversation moving forward.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to talk about is a comment. All right, I don't even know if it wasn't a comment. I think I asked the question, to be honest with you, that was based on, I think, a comment. But, should pastors be paid?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Should pastors be
get a
paid?
Salary?
Yeah. Should they get a salary? And I don't know. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Should pastors get a salary? What are your initial thoughts?
Me, honestly, I say yes.
Okay.
And the reason why I say yes is because pastoring is a 24/7 job. You know what I mean? And it's not about just Sunday mornings. You know what I mean? Being a wife of someone that was a pastor, I've experienced the late night phone calls, the having to go, speak with people, or just, preparing all day, or, there's just a million. I'm not even saying everything. There's tons of things that, a pastor does.
Come with that.
Yeah, that come with being a pastor. And so I do think that, they should be. I do think that, if you can pay your pastor, I do think that, if a pastor can be full time, it would be more beneficial than, having a pastor that has to work outside the home and pastor a church. Yeah.
No, that's really good. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it all depends on what you're asking that pastor to do.
Yeah.
I think in today's church culture, the way church is set up today, Sunday morning church, just the way church is set up today, and how the pastor is expected to behave, then I don't think that you can get around not paying a leader, not paying a pastor, right? And I think there's also some practical elements to that too. But if depending on what you expect from the pastor, I don't think it's fair to obligate the pastor to do all of those things. And I said obligate the pastor to do all of those things. And not expect there to be compensation for that.
Right.
Getting out of bed, spending hours, doing all of those type of things,
being away from their family.
Yeah. And then I think of other things too, like part of the conversation that was being had was, in terms of paying a pastor, maybe this wasn't a part of that conversation, but something I wanted to bring up within that conversation was like, it's interesting, the obligations or the what is that called? The expectations that we put on a pastor, but then we'll turn around and ask these type of questions. So I'm like, you got a person who went and spent $130,000 on education, who has to pay that back, who's using that week in, week out,
right,
to do what they do. But then we'll turn around and along with all the other stuff, and then we'll turn around and say, well, we're going to give you a little bit of money, not enough to take care of your family.
Right.
And for some, we don't want to pay you. You see what I'm saying? Well, you know, there's cost associated with your expectations of what a pastor is. I look at, let me see if I can pull something up. I look at this stuff. Like I look at, like I look at these, I just want to see if I can pull one up real quick. Like churches that are seeking pastors' jobs. You know, I hadn't planned on doing this, but I want to see the description. But, you know, I'm just saying, like, okay, so here's a pastor of a, you know, a church looking for a pastor. Education, master's degree. You see what I'm saying? You know, then it lists out all of the duties, and all of the duties are what we spoke about. So job qualifications: must adhere to the tenets of the Baptist faith for this specific one, must be ordained with the SBC, have 6 to 10 years of pastoral experience. Where are they going to get that from?
Not straight out of college.
Okay, right? You know, but they must have a master's degree also. Obviously, they have biblical characteristics here. So what I'm saying is yeah, based on what this is expecting, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
But if we're looking at this from a biblical perspective on what a pastor is, and it doesn't include all of the things that we put on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, you know, if a pastor is able to, you know, love his family and take care of his family and work and do all of those things, and they're not overly obligated to do things for the church that's not necessarily within, you know, their role, and you know, in terms of, like, you know, like some people believe the pastor, you got pastors who are getting out of bed and, you know, in the middle of the night for things that a man who's pastor in his home should be taken care of. You understand what I'm saying? Like the pastor has become the go-to when it's like, nah, this is your family.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the problem with that is we keep saying the pastor, but if there are elders, which is biblical, which is multiple leaders within a community, then it shouldn't just be the main guy going and doing all of these specific things. Right. So it's not burden. It's not one person's burden. But if we do it biblically, we look at it biblically, and churches aren't what they are today, which is, you know, again, large assemblies and gatherings, then we can have that discussion. That discussion is going to come out much different, which goes into our conversation. I don't know when we're going to release this in what fashion, but it goes into the whole pastor's appreciation. And there's other ways to appreciate the pastor than just the salary, right? Because it depends on what you're asking the pastor to do. I don't think there's a blanket statement. The scripture's clear in terms of, like, listen, you know, you take care of, you know, those who are leading, how to take care of them, with what to take care of. It says, no, you need to appreciate them. And that's clear. But to a large degree, how we do church in our culture dictates what that actually looks like. I think it's unfair to ask a person to pastor a church. Like what I was looking at, all of that they were looking at, that's $35,000. That was the salary that they were offering for that. Wow. Master's degree. You see what I'm saying? 6 to 10 years or however long they were talking about experience. $35,000. Now I'm not making fun of $35,000.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, student loans, 6 to 10 years experience, which probably means that he's been in ministry other places for right.
And he's probably has a family then. 6 to 10 years, you're probably going to have a family, whether it's young kids or teenagers. You're going to have, you know, college to pay for. You're going to have, you know, those loans, a house to buy. You know what I mean? Like that's.
Yeah, car note, you know, and we talking about food now, different things of that sort, you know. Okay, that's a problem. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, again, we can't, you know, it's interesting that people have these demands of a leader, you know, of how a leader should function, what a leader should do, and then turn around and muzzle the leader, as the scripture would say. You know what I mean? Like, no, that's not how it works. So in today's culture of church, with the expectations of what a pastor should do, perhaps, and I mean, this leads into other conversations too, like, because people will get upset. And again, I'm not talking about abuse, but, if a pastor writes a book and they make money off of writing a book, and well, those were sermons that he preached. And well, he wrote that stuff. You see what I'm saying? Like he worked to do those things, right? Now, I'm not talking about then writing the book and then having the church purchase 400 copies of the book, to get it on the bestsellers list. And now you have 400 copies to give to the church, but the church really paid for those books. So nobody really got it for free. Like, I'm not talking about abuse.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about what most of these pastors do. What I'm talking about is just, I had kind of this conversation with another content creator. Like, they were saying, well, I want a pastor's salary to come from the church. Okay, well, make it so that if that's what you're saying, then make it so that pastor doesn't have to do anything else outside the church. He could prosper well within the church. If you're saying that you want to limit everything he's doing to in the church. So if he writes a book, he can't get paid for it. But you as a content creator can get paid for it. That's crazy. That you can flourish with your biblical knowledge, but he can't, right? So in the culture of church today, yes, I think a pastor needs to be. But if church was done differently, then yeah, no, I would say, yeah, I wouldn't say yes or no. I would just say, what are we expecting from that pastor?
Right.
Would determine how we gift that pastor or those pastors to actually lead within that community. You know what I mean? But I'll say this as a person who, because I'm just going to say it this way. Like, I feel like, and this is just me, okay, my experiences.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a lot of things that I did as a pastor, believing that they were the right things to do when it came to just taking care of the family. I feel like I sacrificed our family to serve the church. And the church wasn't even rewarding that. Okay. So,
yeah.
I wasn't, getting a handsome salary.
Right.
Okay. Right. So this was not like, we balling, but the same expectations were there. Right. You're expected to deliver on all of this. Right. And I hurt our marriage because of it. You know what I mean? And I hurt parts of our relationship because of that. And I'm just saying, like, this conversation is much larger than just whether or not a pastor should get paid. It's also on expectations for leaders in the church and how we do church altogether to ensure that there's health and prosperity, whatever that means, for everyone, that people's needs are being met, but at the same time that pastor is able to minister and do what he's called to do without, having to feel guilt or having to rob his family, right? And so I think it's a multifaceted conversation that I think just needs to be, tempered with, what is church? What are the expectations of leaders within the church? What should that look like? And what's expected of us? Here's the last thing I'll say. You got a thought? Okay, but here's the last thing. I think this is the last thing I'll say. But but again, we got a whole generation of people who, and this is really unique to modern culture today. With the birth of the megachurch has also come the birth of all of these roles that you can go major in. Like, there's never been, there was a time where you couldn't go to college to be a youth pastor. That is something that is specific to megachurch culture.
Yeah.
You can go be a youth pastor. You can go be a men's pastor. Like these are all things that you can actually get
degree in.
Degree in. You know, you get your bachelor's with a concentration. You get your bachelor's in Bible with a concentration in men's, and you can go get a master's in men's. You know what I mean? Like you can only use that in church. You understand what I'm saying? And so the way we talk about church is like career now. And so to question whether or not a pastor should get paid, then you got to question the whole system. Yeah. Because the system is driving the mentality. If I go to school to be this, then the expectation is that is going to feed and take care of my family. Then absolutely. I'm expecting to get paid by it. And don't get upset when a person jumps ship because there's a job that pays better over there. You expect them to have a spiritual obligation when you see what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't work that way. Culturally, the culture of church is now driving this question. You know what I mean? Where before, you know, that wasn't even a thought, you know, which is just another thing we got to be really careful of, because, you know, when this mega church culture finally busts, because it is going to bust, it's not going to last. This mega church culture is going to, you can put your foot right there, babe, if you want, make it feel better. You know, this mega church culture is going to break. And the unfortunate part is that we're going to have a ton of people who have given their lives, education to not work in the world, but to only work at a church. And it's going to be sad. You know what I mean? Like, you know, again, I'm just giving my opinion. I would never tell someone, but anyway, I'm not even gonna go there because I was going you know, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't even know if this is controversial. If it is, then I'll cut it out. But I would never tell anyone to go get a degree in Bible. No. Go get you an undergraduate degree in a place that you can work, that you can go get it, that you can go get a job. You know, and you know, I understand concentrations and stuff like that, but I would still be skeptical of that. You know, because you can study the scriptures and get what you need, right? You know, and there's a ton of stuff that you can study outside of the scripture that'll get you everything that you're going to learn in school.
And honestly, as far as, you know, and I'm not saying like I'm against Bible college or anything like that, but with so many changes, I mean, Bible college used to be like more of like a you know, the Old Testament, New Testament. Like it was just like, there's just these basic fundamentals. This is what it is. Where now there's so much other like specialties and all kinds of stuff where, you know, ain't no telling if you're even learning, you know what I'm saying? The right stuff. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It could be them teaching you, you know, their, you know, idea of what, you know, this means, where instead of the idea of what it meant in the Bible, Greek, you know, Hebrew, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And kind of, you know, so they're putting on what they believe, you know, and so that may not be accepted everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that, but see, I think you hit a point in terms of like the reason why. So in order to be accredited, you have to have certain types of classes that you do. So, which when you are accredited means that you become to some degree respected. You get a stamp, right? So when you show your diploma, you know what I mean? You know, from this institution, they're an accredited institution, which means that, you know, the government has placed their seal on it, whatever that means. So you should, the idea is that you can trust that you're educated because they have standards. So you got Christian colleges who no longer just teach scripture, but they want to be accredited because they want to be universities. They want to be accredited. So now they got to add all of the special, all of these things to the program, right? Which waters down the concentration. And so, so it's just, you know, it just creates a mess. You know, it's not about training up people to be in ministry. It's more about just, to be honest, just graduating people, You know, and here's the deal. We even think about this differently. Nowadays, people go to school to be qualified as a pastor without realizing that school doesn't qualify you as a pastor. So you got people who are educated. You got people who are educated, but they're unqualified, right? And I'll probably have to explain this at some point because I'm not sure where I am on this, but everybody who goes to school, it doesn't mean that you're meant to pastor.
Right. Yeah.
It is part desire and it's part call, right? So but we've also tricked people into believing that if I go get a degree, that I can do this. What qualifies me is the degree.
Right.
And I just want you to think about this. Think about how culture has changed. Church culture has changed to where when somebody wants to be equipped and when somebody wants to pastor, we send them away from the local church to go get equipped. When what they're going to be doing is in the local church.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we send them away from the local church to go get equipped. And we have them trained by people who have never even worked in the local church. Like, how does that even happen?
Right.
And I'm not saying all of them, but majority of people who teach in the university have never worked at a church. So what I'm saying is that we have people teaching people about ministry who've never even done ministry. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I'm saying, how backward is it is, how messed up the system is. And so, you know, again, I know we've kind of drifted off topic, but I think what we're getting at is that the question is a tough question because the culture has changed the way to view that question. The way we think about church and church culture and the way we practice church today is not what we see generally in scripture, right? It's an established organization system that's duplicable, that is predictable, that could be done over and over and over. It's a system. And so you plug people into the system. You see what I'm saying? And so it's just changed how that question is asked. I mean, the fact that we post jobs, like we're looking for a pastor to plug into this congregation. You haven't lived in this place. You don't know nothing about these people, right? You know what I mean? Like it just think about how this works now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, and again, I'm just talking about what I'm talking about now. Like, but the reality is, like, I don't know, like, you're posting for a pastor. What were you doing when the previous pastor was there?
Yeah.
Shouldn't there be someone?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, I think it's a bigger question than it is, but I don't know. I think it's depending on what you're asking the pastor to do and which culture or church are we talking about.
Yeah.
We talking about the biblical idea of church? Or are we talking about modern church culture today?
Yeah.
And that question will be answered differently depending on those two areas.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Please drop a comment below. Keep the conversation moving forward. If you have not already, please like, rate, and subscribe. But yeah, give your perspective. Very interesting idea and thoughts, you know. Just would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. And yeah, we'll go from there. God bless you.
All right. Good night.